We're asked to evaluate the following limit as x approaches to 0. First thing that I like to do when we have these problems, whenever we have x approaching something, we want to try to plug this in. Because if we did not have this x squared, we would be able to find our limit without doing any math, just by plugging in. However, since we have this x squared, and we know we cannot divide anything by 0, we are going to have to manipulate this in a way that we can solve for it. So what are we going to do? We see an x squared trapped inside of here. So let's free that x squared. We have to multiply this by the square root of 81 x squared plus 100. And now we see that we have this minus 10 out here. To get rid of all of this, to make it simpler, you just got to take the opposite of it. So we're going to have a plus 10. And we know whatever we do to the top, we are going to have to do to the bottom. So we are going to have the same exact thing on the bottom. So that is what that will look like. Now, inside of here, remember, we're going to put our parentheses like this. That way, we can multiply these two together and then add the multiplication of these two to that. We're then going to add the multiplication of these two to that, and then add the multiplication of these two to that. So, knowing this, let's rewrite this. We're going to have the limit as x approaches to 0. We always have to write this until we actually get rid of that or we plug it in. And then we can rewrite our denominator first. We're going to have x squared, make sure you include parentheses, square root 81 x squared plus 100. And then we are going to have a plus 10 outside, all in the same parentheses. Now here, we are multiplying these two square roots together. When we multiply two exact same square roots, the square roots disappear, so we're just going to have 81x squared plus 100. You can say they disappear or they combine together. Either one is the same. Now, we're going to multiply the square root 81x squared plus 100 by this 10 right here. We can see that with this upper arrow. Now, if we look at the lower arrow, right here, we can see that we have a negative 10 times the square root 81x squared plus 100, which is the exact same thing as we just said with a negative sign in front of it. And since it's the exact same thing with the negative sign in front of it, we're just going to subtract these. And so that gives us a 0. And lastly, we look at the bottom arrow, where we're just multiplying negative 10 by 10. This is going to give us a negative 100, and this is our new equation. So let's cancel some things out. This positive 100 and this negative 100 are going to make a 0. We have an x squared right here and an x squared on the bottom. And so now, rewriting this, we are going to have the limit as x approaches 0 to be 81 divided by the square root of 81 x squared plus 100 plus 10. We know that our x is 0. Let's try plugging it in here to see if it works. If we plug in x is 0 for here, we're going to get the square root of 0 plus 100, or just 100. Square root of 100 is just 10, so we're going to have 10 plus 10. This gives us 20. That means that the limit, I'm going to write it over here a little bit out of order, but the limit as x approaches 0 is equal to 81, which is our numerator, divided by our denominator, which is 20. And that is how you would evaluate the following limit, and those are some steps to evaluate any limit.